Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel for another midweek mystery video, where today I have a Jane Doe case for you. We're going to be covering the story of an unidentified person known as Little Miss Lake Panasoffkee, so named as she was found murdered in Lake Panasoffkee, Florida in 1971. Despite some incredible steps forward in technology since then, in the 49 years she is yet to be identified. It was Friday, February 19th, 1971, when the body of a white female homicide victim was pulled out of the water under the Lake Panasoffkee Bridge at Interstate 75 in Sumter County, Florida. It's about an hour north of Tampa, and according to reports, the body was found by two hitchhikers who were walking on their way to Mardi Gras. They were crossing the bridge and looked over into the water, seeing what they believed to be a body. So they flagged down a state trooper, and an hour later investigators were at the scene, preparing to retrieve it. It was believed that she may have been in the water for several weeks, at least a month, and she was badly decomposed. Investigators were unable to collect any viable fingerprints, and she was not recognisable. It didn't take long for anyone to figure out the cause of death here, if she had been strangled. A man's belt was still around her neck when her body was recovered. It was a man-sized 26 belt and definitely didn't belong to Jane Doe. She had dark brown hair and she probably had brown eyes as well. She is thought to be white or Caucasian, but I did see many sources speculating that she may have also been native. She was an adult with her estimated age range being between 17 to 21, and it's estimated that she died the same year she was found, 1971. She was fairly petite, her height was under 5'5", and she weighed about 110 pounds. At the time of her death, she was wearing plaid green trousers and a matching solid green shirt, along with a shawl or a poncho with a green and white print. She was also wearing a white gold Ladies Baylor wristwatch on her left hand, a small thin gold necklace, and she had a yellow gold ring with a clear stone on her left ring finger, leading investigators to believe that she was likely married or at least engaged. There is also evidence to suggest that she had given birth at least once in her lifetime, most likely twice. So out there somewhere, she probably has 2 children. Due to her body being found with so much jewellery, it's believed that the motivation behind this murder wasn't robbery. It's also believed that it wasn't sexual either. It seems the police were under the impression that she was murdered by someone personal, someone close to her, possibly her husband or fiancé. Of course, there was no identification found with the body, but the woman's teeth showed extensive dental work, including numerous crowns, caps, and silver fillings. Her teeth were later forensically compared against a national database of dental records, but no matches were found. She had also had orthopaedic surgery on her right ankle between 1967 and 1970. The surgery was done in what is known as the Watson-Jones technique, and it was likely done to correct instability in her ankle. She had periostitis in her lower right leg, which was basically inflammation around the tissue, and it likely would have caused her a significant amount of pain in life, and she probably would have walked with a limp, hence the surgery. Despite many public appeals, no one came forward with the identity of the woman now known only as Little Miss Lake Panasoffkee, and after 6 months she was buried in Oak Grove Cemetery in Wildwood, her identity still unclaimed. Her grave marker simply read Jane Doe, 1971, and then for many years she was forgotten about. Until the mid-80s at least, when the case gained renewed attention. The then Sumter County Sheriff, a man called Jamie Adam, reopened the case and obtained a court order to exhume the body. And so on February 18th, 1986, the day before the 15th anniversary of her discovery, she was exhumed. Investigators believe that with new technology and new forensic techniques, they could potentially solve this case. They intended to use their new techniques in facial reconstruction to help identify this woman. Betty Pat Gatliff, a medical illustrator and consultant for the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, was given the task of reconstructing the woman's face to show how she would have looked in the current times. She used the dimensions of the skull and plotted a clay model to the same scale. There was also another sketch artist called Linda Gallinier who in 1988 drew a sketch of the woman as she would have appeared at the time she died, and sketches as she would have appeared at the ages of 12 and 6. The detail was incredible, even drawing her as a child with the popular 1960s hairstyles, in the hope this would help somebody recognise her. Investigators hoped that people who knew her as a child, perhaps a teacher, would come forward, but no one did. After her exhumation, she was looked at again by a forensic anthropologist. It was at this point they discovered the surgery on the right ankle, but they also discovered that she was likely of Indian descent. Now the article I read here simply says Indian, which leads me to believe that they actually meant from India. However, many other articles stated that she may have been native, and I'm honestly not sure which is the correct inference here. Eventually her body was reburied once again, but Sheriff Adams wasn't about to give up. He hired a private investigator to look into the murder alongside the active police investigation. This private investigator uncovered a lead about a man who had been arrested in the same general area as the woman's body in the weeks before she was found. The man was nearly run over by a sheriff's car whilst crossing the I-75 about a mile away from where the body would eventually be found, and he had a pistol in his possession. However, the man was shortly released and was never questioned in connection with the Little Miss Lake Panasoffkee case. But that's far from the end of her story. In 2012, her case was reopened once again and she was exhumed and examined under the orders of the newest sheriff, Darren Norris. Again, he hoped that the case could be solved with the newest technology. And whilst the case is still unsolved, we did get even more answers about who this woman could have been. He contacted anthropologist Erin Markup Kimmerly, the director of unsolved cases at the University of South Florida. Dr. Kimmerly and a geochemist called George Kamenov applied the method of isotopic analysis to Jane Doe's remains. They basically took shavings of Jane Doe's tooth enamel and bones and analysed the chemical makeup of the pieces. The tooth enamel was found to have high amounts of lead, leading Dr. Kamenov to determine that she'd likely grown up in Europe. In the 1950s, lead was added to gasoline, or as we'd call it, petrol, across Europe, and the particular additive found here was unique to various regions. All of the chemicals that we ingest and breathe in throughout our lives, particularly in our childhoods, stick around in our body and provide a unique map of our lives. With modern technology, it would probably be very easy to tell, for example, that I've grown up and lived just outside of London for my entire life. The oxygen levels in her enamel was also investigated, and the heavier oxygen isotopes found led them to deduce that it was likely that she grew up close to the sea. Therefore, she was most likely from southern Europe. But they weren't about to stop there either. Further analysis of her teeth led them to believe that she was most likely from Greece, probably just south of Athens, in a small town called Lavrion. This town in particular is known for its high levels of lead contamination due to the mining operations in the region. It's apparently the most likely scenario based on all of the data, so Jane Doe was probably Greek. Review of her hair found that it had heavier carbon isotopes, which could be indicative of her more recently having a corn-based diet, which doesn't necessarily match with the standard Greek or Mediterranean diet. It's estimated that she may have arrived in the United States from 2 months to a year before her death, and it's speculated that she may have travelled over to Florida in particular to attend a Greek Orthodox celebration called Epiphany that happens annually in Tarpon Springs, a small town about a 40-minute drive northwest of Tampa. This area has a strong Greek community, and it's likely that Jane Doe may have had friends and family living in this region. 41 years after her body was discovered, a woman comes forward on TV in Greece, claiming that one of the sketches of a younger Jane Doe strongly remembered a girl she knew in her childhood called Constantina. They'd gone to school together, but after school they'd entered into an exchange programme sponsored by the International Organisation for Migration. They were basically required to work abroad for 2 years. The woman said that she was sent to Australia whilst Constantina was sent to America. She lost contact with her around early 1971, the same time the body was found. Despite all of this information, authorities haven't been able to confirm any of this story though. They can't locate any of Constantina's relatives, nor can they confirm her existence at all. There's a whole collection of forensic facial reconstructions of this Jane Doe, many different faces of this unidentified woman. From what I can gather, the most recent reconstruction is this one, which features her in her full outfit that she was found in as well. You probably would have noticed if a woman was walking down the street in an all-green outfit, including a floral green poncho. Although saying that would probably be out of the ordinary today, maybe not so much in the early 1970s. I'll leave contact information for the Sumter County Sheriff's Office down below. If you believe you have any leads in this case, then everything is down there for you. I don't think my Greek viewership is particularly strong on here, but it does seem like scientists are convinced that that is definitely where she came from, and she was likely only visiting the USA on a temporary basis. She has at least 1, maybe 2 children out there who would likely be now in their 50s missing their mother. As I stress with every single Jane Doe video I do, all it takes is one lead, one person to recognise something, and these people could be reunited with their identities, reunited with their families who are probably missing them in some form. So if you know anything, please don't hesitate to contact the Sheriff's Office. Like I said, it will all be linked down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you've got any other Jane Doe cases you'd like me to bring light to, then just leave them in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.